Hi, this is Scott with the Android Guys podcast. I'm sitting here today with John. Hey, John, how's it going?
Pretty well, Scott. How you doing?
I'll tell you, man. It's obviously it's the first part of the new year, second, third week of the January 2019, and as such, I've been going through my house. One of the resolutions we have is to declutter. I know that's a popular topic right now. A lot of people are doing that, so we did. We are going from room to room, cleaning things up, getting rid of stuff.
That's excellent.
It feels awesome to do it too. I mean, there's something refreshing about going into a room that's nice and clean, and you know that everything is in its right place, and you know everything that you have. As such, one of the things that I've found in my house, of course, are extra phones.
Yes.
I have the privilege of testing and reviewing a lot of devices, and some of them I use for long term, and some of them find their way into the box, and then they go into a drawer or they go into a cabinet somewhere. So that brings me up to today's topic: is what do you do with your old phones? I know some things that I do with them, but you've got kids, right?
Yeah, we have four, and they did the hand-me-downs, and they like to use them for games and watching YouTube. So that's kind of the first rule of thumb for our house.
So you guys don't even consider getting rid of your old phone. It's just right down the line.
It kind of is. Right now, I've thought about it to try to clean it up a little bit, but right now they just like to use them.
Gotcha. So let's talk about 4 or 5 big things that people can do with their phones. These are kind of buckets or umbrellas that things will fall under, but some of the things that people might consider doing with their phone, we might take it for granted. Somebody might be getting ready to get their first phone or their second. There's a lot of things that we as seasoned smartphone owners and users kind of, it's lost on us that we do take for granted. A couple of things to consider. First and foremost, selling your phone. Just turn it over, get rid of it, make some money on it. We'll talk about selling. Number 2, trading your phone in. Number 3, kind of what you said there, is hand me down. Passing it down the line in the family and why you might want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, this is kind of a general catch-all. Some other things you can do with your device. None of them are really connected to each other, but just some general things to do. And then number 5 is donate, and what to do with your phone. And if you have no use case, you don't plan on selling it, but actually in the very end, you're just going to say goodbye to it for a good cause. Let's jump into selling. This is probably the one that's been around maybe the longest, obviously, is people just selling their old stuff. Have you ever sold one of your phones?
I have. I've sold through Swappa more than anything else, and I know a lot of your listeners are probably familiar with Swappa.com, and it's so easy to do and to set up on there. I have sold a few through there, both personally and through work, and that's been a really great.
Well, yeah,
option.
One of the nice things about them is they provide you some context on, is the price going down? Is it on the rise? What is the price as of today, the most current average selling price? Suggests some things for you. I really like Swappa. It's obviously one of my favorites. What are some other alternatives that you can think of?
Well, I know Facebook groups are huge.
Yeah.
There's so many. If you want to sell it locally, may or may not, but if you want to sell it locally, Facebook groups are a real easy place to be able to post stuff quickly, and
it's kind of evolved out of like the Craigslist thing. Like
yeah, totally.
Local.
Yeah, Craigslist was always a way to do it, but Facebook seems to have gotten a lot of momentum in that space.
I know. Just in looking in my neck of the woods, there are different ones for different cities or townships, even county, for people that are selling different things. People are willing to travel to come pick one up. That's kind of like the Craigslist, something where it says, hey, I'm in this area and I'm selling this device. And you can go back and forth and haggle with people and negotiate. If that's something you are doing, obviously, if you're going to meet somebody in person, be cautious. Meet somewhere publicly. A lot of people like to meet at a police station or a fire station. Meet somewhere that is going to keep you safe and keep you in the public eye, as well as the buyer. If they're buying your device, you want them to feel safe. So,
Absolutely.
don't have them come to your house if you can avoid that, and don't go to their house. So be careful, cautious when you do that type of thing. Couple other things. Obviously, eBay. They've been around.
Yeah, you said they've gotten a lot better. I haven't used eBay myself for a long time, but you said selling on there is way easier than it used to be.
I was surprised. I installed the app on my phone just to see what eBay was like on the mobile experience. And not only is that leaps and bounds better, but just eBay in general seems to be a much more well-oiled machine. I know, like, if you're selling a product, and if there's a barcode, you can scan a barcode, and it helps you to fill in the description of what it is. So if you're selling something that somebody else has already done, you can take pictures directly from your phone. So if you have things lying around your house, eBay seems to be kind of like that catch-all, like, I'm decluttering my house, why don't I just start taking pictures of things and listing it quite literally in the same moment that I'm.
That's true, right? You could go through as you're decluttering and just start listing it
Right.
at the same time.
Or searching for prices. If you just scan it, there's a barcode you can scan to see what things are selling for. That's kind of like a general catch-all, not more specific to cell phones, but that is definitely something to consider.
Well, I think you mentioned too, in selling, that maybe right along the same lines as Amazon has like a, not a buyback program, but they have a way, like their own marketplace. What is that?
So they do a trade-in,
Okay.
and it's not for everything. It's not quite like an eBay. It is a program that you can do if there are things that you have, if you're decluttering and you come across some old Bluetooth speaker or a camera or headphones. You can actually check to see if you can trade that in through Amazon. They will take things back in a variety of conditions, and you'll get different prices based off of whether it's got the box or the original manual. All that stuff factors into it. But that's a good way to trade things in and get credit towards Amazon. If you want to purchase something from Amazon, or if you have a wish list that you've been working at for a while, turn your old stuff in and basically trade that in for things that you do want. And that brings me to the next point. We trade in.
Yeah.
It is, it's January, but come February, March, that's the time of year where we see a lot of phone makers, particularly Samsung, LG. They start to schedule events and release these big flagship devices for the year. So that's where we'll see, obviously, or all things, considered, should see the Galaxy S10. So trade-in is something that's been around for a couple of years now. A lot of carriers are starting to do that.
Do all carriers do that, or is it just kind of like the big ones?
So most of the big ones, your AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, Sprint, those are going to be the ones that they tend to compete with each other. And you're going to find that they'll do what they can to peel you away from your current carrier if they can. And one of the ways to do that is they often will give you credit for your phone if you have something like a flagship that might be the Galaxy S8 or 9. Chances are you're going to find that you have the ability to trade that in. Maybe get a couple $100 back. Usually that's in the form of a gift card, or more like a prepaid Verizon or Visa card, MasterCard. So if you are considering a new phone for the spring, or anytime really, you also see this at Christmas, back to school.
Yeah.
Any reason these carriers can think of that they want.
What if you're a current customer? I mean, most of the time with the contracts, they don't really care.
Right.
I mean, is it the same way with the trade-ins? I mean, are the trade-ins available for current customers, or it's really just if you're switching carriers?
Well, you can actually often find that your carrier is willing to do something to keep you now if you're buying a phone from them.
Okay.
If you've paid for the phone outright, you can do trade-ins. If you are in the process of doing an equipment installation or a lease or paying off over the course of 2 years, when a new one comes out, basically trade that other one in and get credit for your new device. And it's almost like leasing a car in some cases. it gives you the ability to kind of stay current with things. You never really own the device. You're making payments on it in good faith that you're going to stay with the service. After 2 years, it's paid off. It's something that, carriers no longer do these contracts. They don't tie you into a 2-year plan and then subsidize the cost of your phone.
Right. Yeah, that's all kind of went away now.
They want you to stay with them, so they'll say, hey, this $800, $1,000 phone, why don't you buy it through us and make payments, $20 a month, $25, $30, whatever it happens to break out to. When it comes time to getting a new device, trade it in and get X dollars towards your new one. Right. So definitely check with your carrier and see if you have the ability to trade that in. And you don't have to necessarily have it purchased a phone from a carrier. A lot of companies you can buy your phone outright from Samsung.com, or if you have a phone that you bought through LG or Motorola, a lot of times you can still get the same amount of credit, especially if it's unlocked. That's something to consider. And this is not quite the same topic, but if you are switching carriers, check. This is completely unrelated, but check. You might be able to use that phone with the other carrier. Yeah. So you don't have to necessarily get rid of your phone because you're switching carriers or because you're getting you're getting an upgrade. There's a lot of things you can do with your phone.
No, I guess like if your phone is older or maybe it wasn't the flagship.
Right.
I think that to me maybe makes the most sense for the next point is for the hand-me-downs.
Right.
Because it's like, right, if I didn't buy the best phone and now it's like 2 years old and they're going to give me $50 for it or whatever, I'm probably just going to put that down to somebody else.
And that's where, a lot of people, there's a big thing online, and if you follow Reddit and tech sites and blogs, you would think that everybody on the planet buys the latest and greatest. Mm-hmm. But the numbers show that people are not buying those. They're buying last year's generation, or they're holding on to their phones for a longer period. And people are content to buy the S8 as soon as the S9 dropped and save a couple $100 in the process. Wow. So if you're the type of person, which generally speaking a lot of people are, you've got these phones that you're like, okay, so this doesn't, run the latest games. I'm not really a game player. My kids are not really doing anything. They're getting into their first phones. Consider handing it down. Your kids are how old?
9, 7, 5, 3. Right.
So you've got a couple of them that are familiar with or starting to use their phones and use them for different reasons. A couple things that come to mind with, wanting to hand it down to somebody is, you don't have to necessarily put a SIM card in there.
Yeah.
I love to play Pokemon Go. I like to play certain games that require data connectivity.
Yeah.
But there are times where, for you, if you go to the park, or like my sister, if she takes her kids to the park, she doesn't want to have to pay for rate plans for all of her kids.
Right, totally.
It gets really expensive.
Yeah.
But she can still use those phones. So if you've got a phone that you consider passing down, or sharing it with the family, hotspot. You use your mobile hotspot off your phone plan, and then as long as you guys stay within a close proximity, they can all use your data connection. It's also a good way to find out if a kid can be responsible with their phone, if they take care of it, if they're charging it, and they're kind of, my first phone experience, you can kind of monitor that.
Yeah.
And if you do want to start to get them into a rate plan, depending on their age, there are, mobile virtual network operators or MVNOs out there that you can try, such as Mint Mobile. You get something for like $15 a month, get a couple gigabytes of data, and that phone is a great first phone experience for a lot of people.
That would be great, yeah.
Or if you want to use it for, if they want to practice photography, if your kids want to, put some music on it. And that's where we lead into the general bucket we outlined here is there's a lot of small little things that, we might take for granted that we can still use this phone for, even though it's not our main phone.
Yeah. Actually, one thing we did with that is my one son was asking for an iPod. I said, well, what do you want an iPod for? To listen to music.
Right.
And he's just kind of getting into music. And I thought, well, you can put this on your phone. and we use Google Play.
Right.
We have the family, deal. So he can listen to Google Play Music. It's like you can put it on here, throw all these songs offline,
Right.
and you can listen to this now wherever you go with your headphones, and you have it, and not have to worry about that data connection. Because I'm not paying a data connection for any of them.
And a lot of the music services will let you do that, offline playlists, Spotify, and then also video too.
Yeah.
YouTube, kids love YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube and Netflix, you can do the offline videos there right on.
So that becomes it's a 4 or 5 inch screen that if you want to store things offline for road trips or just for your kid to have, they can have their music on there. And because it's not necessarily connected, you kind of get a better chance to vet that content. If you're a parent, you can kind of see what's on there without it changing dynamically throughout the day or week without your knowing that.
Yeah.
Other things to come to mind, turn it into a remote control of sorts if you have a smart home. A lot of people are getting into connected homes with security, with learning thermostat or cameras and lights. There's a lot of different things that you can do. Speakers where it would maybe make sense to keep that phone in a central place and use it as a remote control.
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily have to load a bunch of apps or anything on there, just what you need to, but you can use that to control things throughout the house, or to tap into a security camera and just give yourself another presence somewhere in the house.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the security cameras, I know somebody I used to work with. He took an Android phone, an old one, and I forget the app, but it was for a security camera, and he just set it on a shelf, plugged in all the time, and that puppy just recorded it locally to an SD card, and then you could also access it over the network, over that local network. And it was a pretty cool little solution. It wasn't the best, but it was pretty cool to be able to reuse an old phone like that.
Well, you can use it as not just for security, but if you're a parent, you can use it as a baby monitor.
Oh,
you can tap into that as you need to drop in on the camera. There's different applications. There's a lot of different things you can do. At night when you go to bed with your phone that you do use, generally the last thing you do is set your alarm or make sure your alarm is set.
Right.
Turn that thing into a dedicated alarm clock. This gives you the opportunity to put your phone somewhere else in the house or the room so that you're not messing with it at night.
That's such a good point. We always talk about how the phones do everything, but we also don't want to play with them at night.
Right.
Because, mess with the sleep. But yeah, if you just have a dedicated one to set your alarm with, don't put anything else on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that way your actual phone sitting out in another room charging overnight or whatever, you're not going to be tempted to play with it.
And that goes back to the idea of your connected home. If you have a coffee maker that's set to go when you wake up, or your morning routine to play your news upon waking up, there's all that stuff goes into that alarm clock. Google's default alarm clock has some really cool features now. So that's something to consider if it's an old phone, especially if it's, you call it small screen, 4 or 5 inches or whatever. That's plenty big enough to put on your nightstand.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing that came to mind, and there's tons of reasons to keep an old phone, but dedicated VR. If you have a phone that works with maybe a Google Cardboard, or if it's a Daydream compatible phone, we're at that point now where we're starting to see those types of phones as your second, as you're passing them down.
Yeah.
They might be a good dedicated one to just load some games for some virtual reality and just kind of keep that separate so you don't have to put them on your main phone, and you don't have to worry about storage. You don't have to worry about taking care of that thing. It just pick it up, play with it, and put it away when you're done. So tons of reasons to consider keeping it, and ask around. See if somebody else has a reason, like, hey, if you had a Wi-Fi device, what would you do with it? Kindle, if you wanted to just load a book reading app or podcasts, or if you just wanted to pair that to a speaker and leave it in a room, so like when you go in to do, put together puzzles or paint or build Lego sets or whatever, like just you have something that's dedicated to that room.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
So the last thing is I've exhausted all the options. I don't have a reason to keep it. I've got nobody that wants it. The last thing to do is donate.
Absolutely. We've donated phones through companies I've worked with, and we've done it a lot of times with veterans. There's been veterans within the organization,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been real easy to do it. I do suggest wiping them
Yes.
off first before you send them out.
Another topic.
Right, that's another topic, but yeah, they're really good. And it's like, yeah, Salvation Army and other folks, and there's probably some other ones.
There's, a lot of times your local churches will take them, or just general charities. If you look online, there's a lot of places that will take battered women's shelters.
Yeah, they do.
Give
Absolutely.
somebody the opportunity to give them a phone that they might not otherwise have.
It's true, because right, like churches and other people who are working with a lot of other folks,
Mm-hmm.
their ear is going to be to the ground to know who needs help.
Right.
And what they really need, and to be able to have a device that's usable to be able to grab this. I mean, I had know somebody who they needed access to get just for school.
Yep.
I mean, most schools, report cards and everything aren't coming home
Mm-hmm.
paper anymore, and to be able to give a phone or a device to somebody like that can be a huge lifesaver.
Right. And we take for granted all the things we can do with a phone, and then there are people who just need to be contacted.
Yeah.
So if your phone, you look at it and go, man, this thing's like 3-4 years old. It's not any good. I can't play it. Like, don't even think about that. That phone becomes a lifesaver for some people. So donate it. It might be the one that makes you feel the best after you do it.
That's
Anyways, even selling it or doing whatever. But if you donate it, that one is, you might be doing the most good with it.
Absolutely, I agree. I learned a few things today. I think that some really good ideas to do with the phone.
Yeah. There's things that, you look at, and when you stop for just a moment and realize, I can make this a dedicated device for this, or I can use this in a way that I kind of overlook on a day-to-day, or just the idea of like, you know what, this is just sitting in a drawer and I have no idea what to do with. So try one of these, 4 or 5 different general topics. But if you have any other suggestions, I'd love to hear them. Feel free to email us at podcast@AndroidGuys.com. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you have done with your old phone, or what you might suggest. Or if you have any questions about anything that we did bring up here, feel free to reach out as well. For John, this is Scott. I want to thank you guys for listening. Have a great day.